if you're a farmer, take the advice from a farmer to a farmer and see how that runs for you. I'm not asking you to invest any more money, but I am asking you to invest in your herd of cows. It's not spending money, it's investing. Today I wanted to bring you to our own unit here. We're looking at the 22nd of February, and I suppose grass is in sight really for us here on this farm in about 2 to 3 weeks, and most of the spring calving farms that may well be getting there a little sooner. I wanted to chat to people in relation to what we're doing for our winter ration and to try and bring the importance of that balance and those intakes into what we should be doing over the next 150 days. If you look at this, we have a TMR, a total mixed ration, and in this, and based on the work of our nutritionists and advisors, we have there's 3 kilos of maize, wheat, barley, there's soybean, there's fodder beet, there's maize silage, and there's grass silage. And the amount of time that was taken to balance up this with several things in mind. One, that it has full nutrient value to supply to the cow, to give us the output from the cow and protect the body condition as we're going along. We look at it, I think the critical thing here is that the feed is available. It's available for her every time she comes out there to take it in, and that it's well balanced. And the guys that put this together spend a lot of time looking at protein, energy, all of that. In 3 weeks' time, we're going to be bringing in grass here on this farm. And we've traditionally been zero grazing now for over 10 years. And we can measure the intakes very, very simply because we put the grass here, and if it's getting scarce, we need to get more. I look at the spring calving traditional dairy system where the cows go out onto the paddocks and they graze out there. And I suppose in the earlier paddocks, we're trying to get a cover of whatever the farmer sees fit for his cow type, and then start a rotation and be able to fulfill the need of the cow right along for whatever period of time. I suppose I always look at this time of the year with a word of warning, in the sense that if your grass paddocks aren't thick enough, you may well be bringing your cow's body condition down. You may be reducing your milk. So from a grass point of view, we recommend to our users, number one, and even to guys that are not our users, guys to go out and maybe bring in some grass by way of a contractor. You don't need to own a zero grazer to zero graze, and zero grazing is not about having cows inside. The cows are inside here because the bulk of our land is away from the parlour. And I probably believe if we had enough land around the place, we would still zero graze, because an integral part of what we do, but we'd combine it with some grazing. We've seen over the years one of the major pitfalls that we all fall into, or that the bulk of the spring calving man falls into, is high quality cows not going in calf. And when you're spring calving, you have a limited period of time. Otherwise, no matter what happens, she falls outside of that, and in the following year her lactation is going to be too short, so she's losing your money. What we say to people is, when you go out on your paddock for your first grazing, that first grazing, if the covers are right, is possibly the only grazing that you will get that dry matter from for that period. Because those cows going out, particularly this time of the year, they'll hoof mark it, they'll defecate it, they'll pee on it. So come 3 weeks' time, even with good growth, if there's better growth, you'll probably go out in 17 or 18 days. If there's poor growth, you might be at 21 days. But for sure, the same grass is not available because of what she's done in the previous grazing. And when you get to the third grazing, actually the same applies. Now, if you want to, you can maybe pre-mow or you can top, but it's not a traditional practice on a very, very busy spring calving farm. What we're saying to people, to maintain that intake, you need to bring in 4 or 5 kilos of dry matter of grass on a daily basis. And I'll get in a moment to the cost implications of not doing that. But if you bring in 4 or 5 kilos of grass, whether they take in 10 kilos of dry matter or 15 kilos of dry matter on the paddock becomes irrelevant if you're supplying the top up after the milking or after an evening or a morning milking, where they can make that readily available to themselves. So what you're allowing them to do is to have consistent high dry matter intakes from grass. The benefit of that, or the downside of not doing that, and I've seen it on the number of herds this year. One herd in particular, I projected from progressive genetics milk recording that I picked 33 cows based on their milk yield, their age, their body condition, that I felt would have less of a chance going in calf, and 30 of those cows showed not in calf. Now, there were probably 1,000 litres ahead of the herd average, but they were his best genetics. The reason they didn't go in calf is very simple. They weren't getting enough dry matter in to maintain body condition and milk to the level that they were doing anyway. So what happened there was they possibly came in heat, possibly went in calf, but probably reabsorbed maybe 6 weeks later and kicked themselves out of the system. The sad part of this, but also the most expensive part of this, is that those cows ultimately sold for €700 per head. So the top milking cows in the herd were now going out the door at 700. To replace those cows, there was heifers coming in, and those heifers, and we all know the cost of bringing a heifer into a herd could be anywhere from 1,300 to 1,500 euro per head. So if you analyze that, you now have brought in a heifer for 1,400 or 1,500 and sold a cow for 7. So your net cost is 700 per head. And on that herd, there was 30 of those cows. That was 21,000 euro. But the real cost has yet to come. Your heifer will generally produce 1,500 litres less than what that cow as a mature cow was producing before she exited. So you could look at easily another 700 euro of a cost for losing that cow. And these losses are outside of your normal cull rate for lame cows and older cows and cows with issues. These are outside of that. But where I find that it really kills you is the 30 cows you got rid of were your best 30 cows, and with sex semen, they would probably have produced the next 30 real key heifers to build that herd. This really happened because the intake of the cow wasn't adequate to sustain her body condition, to keep her pregnant or to make her pregnant, and to allow that. This is a major, major cost, and we see it on farm every single year on spring calving herd around the country. Bad weather can compound it, wet weather can compound it, because if you get wet weather, grazing out paddocks is more difficulty. And I know it's a change of mindset, but if you can convince yourself to bring in 5 kilos of dry matter for the first 150 days of lactation, you're not just attending to the needs of the 30 that you might have culled or the percentage you might have culled, you're actually attending to the needs of the entire herd of cows, you're really encouraging 2 to 3 kilos of additional dry matter intake. And you will see that in milk protein, you will see that in milk output, and you will see that in concentrate savings. So what I'm saying to you as a customer, as a potential customer, as someone else's customer, to have a look at the real costs involved in there and be able to deal with that. If you have 100 cows or 150 cows, you're looking at an investment of 150 loads of grass to get you safe back in calf. But you'll also see higher submission rates, higher conception to first service, and a much more content animal. Dairying today, and we all know it, we get a price for our milk. It's set for us, we'll get a text message, it's up a cent per litre, and we're ecstatic. But if you lose 30 cows, and that cost has been 1,400 per cow, is 42,000 euro. If you lose that, a cent per litre will never compensate you for the difference. So you have to look at how you bring in that grass. Your cost of 150 loads in, it might be 15,000 for a contractor, but it's not 15,000 spent, it's 15,000 invested. So please look at that. Our outlook into the dairy farming, the whole industry at the moment, you're given a price, you have to take it. The challenge you have is how you deal with the cost of production. And if you can take your cull cows down, if you can take yourself up a litre or two, if you can take yourself up a cent or two with additional protein, it's about not writing checks for somebody else. So I'm not saying to you buffer feed by getting the feed man in, another bin full of stuff and another 2 kilos per cow. I'm saying continue what you're doing, but buffer feed with grass. And tell me if there's no difference by phone, by email, but I believe it'll revolutionize most farms within this country.